Good Sunday morning, everybody, and let's get into the action for reviewing our doubles from last Thursday. Here we go, first point. Okay, quickie review here. What we want to key in here is the spacing between you and your partner. Hold it. Okay, so if we back this up a little bit from Amy's perspective here, and there's Amy right there, we can see how Andrea's ball has pulled Laura outside. So this is just that old thing of moving with the ball. So from Amy's perspective, once Laura gets pulled over there, her responsibility now becomes the middle of the court. Guess where the ball comes back? It tends to come back. That's that deflection angle that I often refer to, and you can see how it came right through the center. And from Amy's perspective, if she moves into the middle, or any of you ever see this situation happen, your opponent's been pulled wide into the angle, just scoot yourself into the center, because then what you're going to wind up with is a free volley right through the center of the court for an easy point. Okay? So let's move on forward. Let's see what we have here. Okay. Very similar situation here. This time, I'd like you to key in on Andrea, okay? And good deep return. And if we see Andrea here, she's doing the right thing. She's following a strong return in and considering whether, hey, is this a ball I can pick off or not? And from her perspective, she's looking at Laura. Laura is in a very aggressive position there. So what that means to Andrea in this scenario here is, once that ball clears by you, with Laura being as aggressive as she is, we got to scoot back there a bit more proactively, as opposed to if Laura was back on her service line, you may not even need to back up that much at all. But you can see Laura's just sitting on top of the net, and considering what Karen has just hit back to your partner, pretty good deep shot, and she hit it with angle. And if we look at this space here that's been created between Andrea and Amy, you can see they're in a pretty vulnerable position, especially with Laura being camped out on the net. And sure enough, there's the volley, and she's got the Grand Canyon to hit through here, which she does. Excellent stuff there. Okay. Now, this is really cool. You know, right at the end of the shot there, or end of the point, I'm sorry, Amy missed an overhead. But what she missed was a true opportunity right prior to that. This is what I mean. Watch what her ground stroke does here to Karen. And if we look at, what I'd like you to do is look at Karen's feet here. And you can see how Amy's ball has put her back on her heels. And hopefully we remember from the last couple times, when you push people backwards off their heels, you can come in, because typically what comes out of that corner is a bit of a floater. And Karen has been pushed back so far by the depth of Amy's ball. Yes, the ball goes up in the air, way up there. And if, from Amy's perspective, if you move in there, you can take that ball out of the air and finish off the point. Instead, the ball bounces. And you can see where this ball's bouncing here. It's just beyond the service line. And boy, that would have been a prime volley. So she takes it on the bounce, and she still, decides that this is a shot Amy has. She's comfortable with it, and she was attacking the net person. And that was an opportunity. But the point being is that we had a better opportunity just prior to that by moving in off of a ball that you pushed your opponent back on her heels with. Okay? Okay. Interesting point here. This has to do with angles being hit on the court. Okay, so number one, we can see Laura's been pulled off to the side of the court. So that's angle number one, and Laura comes back with a very fine short angle of her own. Just a reminder, when you pull somebody off the court like that, from Andrea, who's way back here behind the baseline, when you hit those kinds of angles, strongly consider moving up into the court to guard against this kind of return, which is a short angle. Okay, now this is where things get interesting, because the balls, with Andrea being on her, basically her single sideline, Laura is very concerned with the return angle. So she's out there. So that means who's got this in the middle? And this is where, with the ball being below the net, from Andrea's perspective, when Karen is looking, Karen at the net here, and Karen's looking at this ball that Andrea's dealing with from below the net, she's got to be, yes, do you worry about a lob over your head? Not off of that ball. Do you really concern yourself with a drive up the alley? Probably not off of that ball. The ball you want to be concerned with is that low ball that comes back across the center of the net, Karen. So, right when Andrea goes to hit it, I would put my money on just sliding to your right. And look where that ball's coming through. And that a poachable ball? Absolutely, because you're right next to it. And so you try to go to it, but just couldn't get to it. And again, with Laura being stuck out here looking at the return angle, that middle of the court is uncovered off of that. So you can't cover everything, but you cover the higher probability, and the higher probability off of that it's going to come back through the center. Okay? Moving on forward. This was just a very good, solid point. Let's take our way through this. It all starts off with a very fine return of serve. Laura's coming in there, and Andrea goes right through the center, high percentage shot. Laura takes the ball from the center. What do you do with that? She volleyed it back up the center. Very good decision on her part. Okay. And this is where, little thing with the ball being in the center, Laura, for some reason you were moving off to your right a little bit. Don't think that was quite necessary, but didn't really matter because the lob went up. And what's nice is when Karen goes to hit this lob, what's important is, with Karen being pulled into the center of the court, the last place she wants to hit that is back behind herself, back over to Andrea's side of the court, because obviously that would be a free shot there. So when you can't do much with shots, as I always encourage people, just keep the ball in front of your partner. That's a good play. It'll keep you in the point. In this case, she goes back to Amy. Amy tries to go to the open court. Doesn't get much in it now from this one. We just went at Amy. And what I like with Karen's ball here, and by the way, great shifting on the court from Laura to maintain good spacing between herself and her partner. She goes right back at Amy again, who's just behind the service line right now. Solid play. Forces a weak shot, and the coup de grazie overhead from Laura. Kaboom. Takes care of business. Love that stuff. Okay. Now, even though Laura missed that shot to conclude it, this is a point. I was waiting for this to happen. And this has to do with when you can get this person to respect your ability to drive or lob, you can catch them out of position. This is what I mean. So after the return has been played, okay? Amy has kind of stayed where she's at right now. And this will happen a lot if, from Laura's perspective, she's got a solid lob, because this person here doesn't want to get beat by the lob all the time. So if you can get them just staying in this area of the court, it really opens up any kind of drive you want to hit over here, because it's going to be very difficult for any opponent to really take charge of the point and beat you off of that. And you can just see she, not trying to hit a winner, it's just she hits a basic ground stroke, where Amy in this section of the court is going to end up at her feet. And that's just a really tough position to play from. But this all stems from your ability. If you're in Laura's position here, if you have your two good shots, you have a good lob and a good drive, it will get this person making, kind of guessing sometimes, should I move in behind my partner's return or stay back in case she's going to lob? And so as a direct result of that, a lot of times you get people that are stuck in this area of the court where Amy's at. And yes, she can cover the lob, but she's very vulnerable to a drive at that point. Okay? So, I think we have one more in this clip to look at. This is a sweet turnaround from Andrea, and this is what I mean. Okay, so at this point, Andrea has been pushed out of the picture by the depth of Laura's shot. So Laura's feeling pretty good about herself. I pushed my opponent back behind the depth of my shot. She hits back a weak shot. Laura plays pretty solid half volley there. It doesn't sit up, but Andrea, to her credit, has moved up back inside that baseline. And from here, this is always a good way to turn defense into offense, is just smack that ball. Look how low this ball is crossing the net. Look at this. That's why you've heard me say so many times, the team that's hitting up is going to lose to the team that's hitting down. And when you can hit those low ground strokes across the net, because imagine if this ground stroke had been more eye level to either Karen or Laura, well, at that point, Amy's going to be facing the brunt of that. But when you have the ability to hit this ground stroke low through the center, there it is. The only thing I can say to that is when Andrea is moving up inside the baseline, visually what I would see was she's stepping up into that shot inside the baseline. She's committing to a drive. And what Karen could have done here is just to scooch up a little bit more, knowing a drive's coming. I wouldn't even think about a lob at this point, because, and you can see Karen at the net, if you look, you're just a little bit on your heels here. In fact, I say right when she hit it, watch how you take a subtle step off to the side and back. And that helped open up the middle. Who's to say you would have done anything with that ball, because that's a tough ball for anybody to play at the net when it's that low and fast. And then at this point, the ball is just about over, the point's over, and Laura, you took a big chance there. Be careful, girl. All right? So, that completes that sequence. I've got another clip here to show you.